Welcome back to Plague Scythe Studios, everyone. Ryan here. Today, we're taking another trip into the neural verse with Archetype Gojira. It was around this time last year at NAMM 2020 when Neural DSP fully unveiled the details of its quad-cortex amp modeler, and I had erroneously predicted it would be another 2 to 3 plugins that they would release until we'd see the full launch of its amp modeling hardware. As of making this video, you can indeed pay for one or pre-order one, but I've not seen one out in the wild yet. So thanks coronavirus for screwing up literally every industry. No hard feelings when it comes to that, but we have about 5 or 6 plugins that's come out since then. We go down the list. We've got, of course, Archetype Gojira, Corey Wong, the Fort and Cali, Omega Ampworks, and then all the stuff that was sort of prior to the announcement there. So yeah, we've had quite a few between the time that I was kind of expecting to see hardware and now. And that kind of changes my outlook on these plugins and how I think people should be buying them. Not the overall strategy, really, but kind of the value proposition for each one. Because this one I find to be really interesting in the sense that it's not Archetype Nolly, where they're modeling his personal amplifiers. It's not Archetype Bossy, where they're sort of doing something similar, but also doing things in the digital realm that you simply can't with traditional, analog gear. This is sort of in between because I have a strong feeling that a lot of the virtual gear in this plugin is either directly modeled after or highly correlated with a lot of the stuff that Gojira uses, especially Joe Duplantier uses live and in the studio. With that in mind, and this plugin coming in at the full $160 Archetype price tag, I almost view this as some amalgamation between the standalone Fortin and Omega Ampworks plugins and a full-blown Archetype suite. The effects and all the things that you would expect to see in an Archetype plugin, at least from Neural DSP, are there, but the amp modeling I would just say is a bit more vanilla than some of the stuff we've seen in the past. It's a little more comparable to Plenty or Corey Wong in that way, but again, the price tag is $20 higher. For that reason, and I think a lot of the tones will back my statement up here, I think this is the best vanilla heavy metal plugin yet. If you aren't particularly keen on paying $100, or more accurately $120 for a standalone amplifier from the Fortin or Omega Ampworks variety, you need a little bit more versatility. You would like some built-in effects, but you don't want to go highly specialized extended range guitar stuff that you would see in a Bossy, or just some of the amplifiers aren't tickling your fancy out of Nolly. I think this is the best one yet. Yes, obviously you can sound like Gojira with this plugin, but due to the ubiquitous nature of some of the amplifier sounds and even some of the overdrive and effects and stuff in here, I think this is like the best plugin package they put together to start your own band or make your own mix and not listen to it and immediately think, oh, well, they're trying to sound like XYZ band or ABC amplifiers. So we'll go through the plugin as always. Again, I'm going to skip through all the stuff that Neural DSP is known for by now. This, of course, features the same UI layouts, built-in tuner, MIDI assignable parameters, which if you plan to use this in any sort of live playthrough, definitely take advantage of that with like an external expression pedal for reasons that will become more obvious as we go through here. A shit ton of very high quality and usable artist presets. Of course, Joe made some. There's some good factory presets. But we have the guitarist from Hawken. We have Ishin from Emperor. Nolly, of course, always, he always shows up here. Greg from Car Bomb, which really excites me. And, more than I could possibly go over in a single video. So if you're struggling with anything, or you think maybe you've not scratched the full potential of this plugin, then definitely check the presets out. They're definitely getting better with every plugin. Now, I'm once again going to talk about the signal chain back to front, because just like with Archetype Corey Wong, I feel like things get less interesting the further you go along the signal chain. So let's start with the time-based effects that come last. We have another delay and reverb. What is this? Archetype number 4 or 5 that does this. They're all good. I mean, these are staples in the signal chain, so I'm glad they're there. It's just there's not a whole lot to talk about when they basically do the same thing or take different elements from all the previous delays and reverbs. This one I like in that it has a tape saturation mode, which is pretty cool. You got a ping pong mode. It's not stereo in the same way that like Archetype Corey Wong's was. This is closer to, say, the Abasi delay sound. Really good, no complaints there. It's just not that different from a lot of the stuff that came before, but this does sound like the delays that Gojira would use. So again, that's fine. Modulation switch, syncing the tap tempo, all that good stuff. The reverb, once again, this is not a, a replacement for a simple plate or spring reverb. This is very lush. You can approach a more simplified amp in the room sound as you turn down the time and tame the low and high frequencies. It does have a built-in shimmer mode. Again, I prefer to have shimmer on a dial where I can dial in the amount I want. I don't find this one to get too overbearing on the shimmer mode, which some of the previous iterations do, in my opinion. So again, it's a solid effect, just maybe not all that different from something that you could get in the previous Archetype plugins. This once again features cabinet impulse responses shot by Nolly. You have 3 separate cabs, 1 for each amplifier channel. I find most of them to be more or less interchangeable, and they will work on all 3 channels. This has kind of been a trend where the cabinet number 2 is a bit finicky on the higher gain side of things, and so even on the second channel, I tend to prefer cabs 1 or 3. But again, they're all good. They come from Nolly, no kidding. You have your usual roundup of 2 dynamic mics, 2 condensers, 2 ribbons, and you can blend them as you see fit or use your own custom IRs. No complaints there. Graphic equalizer, again, nothing particularly new, but glad it's here. Which brings us to the first potential point of controversy in this plugin, the amplifier section. Joe and Christian have used a number of amps throughout the years with Gojira. I know they've recorded with dual Rex on some of their older stuff, PV5150 originals, and of course now they are among the dozens of artists that use the 5153, including the original 100-watt version. I think there was a Stealth somewhere in there. Maybe they toured with it, or I can't remember. But I know Joe very much prefers the EL34 version, especially in the studio. And to my ears, that's what this amplifier is. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that there's some tweaks throughout here because, you know, obviously the depth circuit is up front, but all the controls would match those amplifiers. Maybe sans for the clean channel, but at least it still does have a bright switch. For this one in particular, they didn't include like a master volume or presence control or depth. But you can very much hear that it's more of a Plexi-inspired British clean sound than it is, I think, a modern Fender derivative, which I think further reinforces my prediction. Again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments here, but even channel 2 here does sound more like the EL34 blue channel than like the traditional, you know, crunch channel on a 6505 Plus or even, you know, the contemporary 5153s. So I think it's fine. That's what they use. It sounds like them, and it plays with all the other effects really well. But again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, that it does sound a bit more vanilla than some of the other archetypes, maybe more so than even Nolly, where, you know, all of his amplifiers are stock in a way in that collection, but they were modified as well. So I feel like you're still getting some sounds that you otherwise couldn't if you were just using another plugin. With that said, if you know how to dial in a 5153, that philosophy carries over pretty damn well to this plugin because mostly everything at noon just kind of works. Now, for a lot of contemporary high-gain stuff, I'd much prefer to turn down the master volume to not be so saturated, but I feel like for Gojira's tones, that works a lot. Everything else, though, you can kind of keep in this region, and it's going to sound good, guaranteed. Even the crunch channel, you know, you turn up the gain high enough, it very well could work straight out of the box with your rhythm sound or just boost it with one of the pedals that's included. And the clean channel works as a really nice pedal platform and does a pretty cool thing when you crank the gain all the way up as well. All of the EQ controls do sound like they're pre-distortion, which means you can do, again, some of those cool classic amplifier things that didn't have master volumes. So again, I do like the sounds that are in here. It's just perhaps maybe not as unique as some of the archetypes that came before it. pre-amplifier effects pedal section, I asked and Neural DSP delivered. I've been talking about modulation effects for the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 Neural videos, and we finally have it with Gojira as the catalyst for that. You've got kind of your traditional, MXR phase 90 script sort of sound. It's a phaser. That's what it does. Kind of a one-trick pony, but it works. The chorus, I prefer stereo chorus post amplifier, but you can get some really cool 3D effect when you put a chorus in front of, especially a clean channel, but it does work, I think, for those thick Gojira tones in front of the high gain ones as well. The Dirtbox is this plugin's distortion pedal, and given the familiar labeling, I think this is based on some sort of hard clipping circuit, particularly a rat style circuit. It doesn't exactly sound like a rat. It doesn't have that brick wall limited gating spitty thing when you turn the distortion too loud, which I think for the amplifier selection here is a good thing. It blends in far better because of that. But this is like an obvious low pass filter. You do have quite a bit of headroom for boosting. Overall, it does meld better with all the other distortion that's in here. So I think that's a good choice. It is just smoother and less gritty than an actual rat would be, but you can get somewhere in the ballpark. The overdrive pedal is, again, not your traditional tube screamer. Certainly plenty of hallmarks there, but it kind of sounds like one of those modernized circuits where you have more output level, maybe less aggressive tone control, or one that filters more bass, keeps more of the high end, a distortion control that does sound more amp-like, so it doesn't sound like symmetrical clipping diodes. There might be LEDs or something in here. Which makes me believe that both of these pedals are modeled after the KHKD line of pedals. I know Joe has used them both live and in the studio, so whichever ones those might be, I don't really care, but they do work with everything in here. Finally, or more accurately, firstly, we have the most novel part of this plugin with the pitch effects. Now, Archetype Corey Wong introduced an envelope filter and wah pedal, and I would like to see this sort of specialized section continue in the Archetype plugins. Quite frankly, I think a couple of them could use this as an update. But with this, you have an octave pedal where you can dial in one sub-octave or even a second sub-octave below that and blend it with your dry signal. You can get real heavy with this really fast. And many of you probably know what this is going to be inspired by, but this is a Digitech whammy style pitch effect where you can dial in depending on the position of the pedal, a fifth or a seventh, or a full-blown octave above to get the Silvera sound, the stranded, everyone knows that riff. So you can either use that with the couple of blade settings, which is 100% wet, or the Fatso setting, which blends in dry and wet, which I think has been my favorite way to use this. This is the part where you're going to want to use a MIDI-compatible expression pedal, or at the very least, automate this in your DAW if you are just tracking with it or putting down demo ideas, that sort of thing. Obviously, this would not be a Gojira plugin without this, so I'm extremely happy they put this in. And although it's not really my cup of tea for my original music, it definitely inspires me to play a different way. What's left to say about Archetype Gojira? I mean, they're one of my favorite contemporary metal bands ever. I've still not seen a show since theirs that has beat them in terms of live sound, and at a festival at that. I mean, it sounded like they were playing the damn album. It was absolutely ridiculous. Super talented, and as far as that aesthetic of metal goes, and of course they've grown throughout the years in terms of their their playing and their sound. But as far as that goes, I think they are certainly worthy of having their own signature sound, especially from Neural DSP. Like I said earlier, if you're interested in some of the standalone metal amplifiers like the Grandifier or like the Fortin stuff, but you gravitate towards tones that maybe are, like I said, a little more vanilla when it comes to the whole heavy metal tone, or you just want something that's going to work for more than just that hot rodded British sound or more than just this Omega Ampwork sound, I think this is a great starting point. I think this is the best one they put out for the kind of sounds that we dial in a lot on this channel. Whereas, like Pliny, it's a little too prog rocky sounding for me. Yes, you can get metal tones out of it, but there's still this overarching frequency response or crunch to the sound that I think it doesn't really fit with a contemporary metal mix. And, Archetype of Bossy is a little too extreme, too progressive metal. This sits in a happy medium. So if you kind of like what's going on in Nolly, but you're not crazy about it, definitely give this one a shot, even if you're not a huge Gojira fan. Which I guess is what I've been saying a lot of, is that I feel like the naming of some of these do it a disservice. Obviously, it's going to sell more copies because it has big names attached to it. But at the same time, it's like this does more than Gojira, right? Corey Wong's plugin does more than just Corey Wong's tones. But again, that's what makes these things fly off the virtual shelves, I suppose. So overall, I like this one quite a bit. I don't think I want to buy it personally because, again, for the pitch effects and all the new stuff they've added, I just don't take advantage of that enough. I'd probably use fractal modeling or some of the other free plugins I have. I want to do that for writing, and it's kind of a vanilla sound, like I said, that I don't think really stands out from the crowd when I play through it. But with that said, this is certainly in the right direction of what I like to see from Neural DSP if they're going to go the metal route. In my opinion, that is better than doing another completely prog rock or metal focused plugin. And I've heard rumors of some of the artists that are working on their own signature pack, and I honestly think some of it is redundant, but maybe they'll surprise me. If they keep adding in these unique gotchas like the pitch effects and some of the modulation stuff for the amplifier, then maybe it could be worth it. But again, with the Quad Cortex seemingly so close to launch, if you're going to buy one of those things, I just wouldn't bother, especially with this plugin, or especially some of the other stuff that's a little more generic sounding. Wait till you get that and then see what you're missing, and maybe one of these can make sense if you still need it on the desktop. So yeah, I mean, it's quality. It always is. It's Neural. I'm just hesitant to recommend this class of plugin to those of you that are either A, going to buy a Quad Cortex, or B, already own another one of the Archetype suites, because in that case, I would recommend you just fill in the gaps with other plugins. But if you don't own anything, this, I think, could be a very good, well-rounded, one-stop shop from Neural DSP to get all your metal sounds. So that'll be it for me. Thanks so much for watching. As always, if you have any questions, leave them down below. We'll see you next time. Bye.